In January of 2017, Yakuza 0 hit store shelves in the West and introduced a lot of people to the series for the very first time. While Yakuza has only recently gained most of its mainstream attention, the series has been going since 2005 when the original Yakuza was released on PlayStation 2. Now, with the arrival of Yakuza 6, the games are as big and as polished as ever. But if this series is more than a decade old, why is it only just starting to get noticed now? And why should you care? Well, I'm Dean from Curse, and I'm going to tell you why. Here's what you need to know about Yakuza, one of the best gaming franchises you've probably never heard of. In many ways, Yakuza is like a modern evolution of old-school beat-em-ups like Streets of Rage or River City Ransom. Like those classics, the backbone of the gameplay in Yakuza is moving around on a city map and beating down anyone who gets in your way. The big difference is, instead of those encounters happening while you walk in a straight line to the right, you have an entire open-world map to explore. You'll be running down the street trying to get to your next destination when suddenly a gang of street thugs stops you looking to throw down. The combat system is simple to use at first, but as you go on, you'll find that it's also deep and varied. There are multiple fighting styles, context-sensitive special moves, and a progression system that gives you access to a bigger arsenal of moves and combos as you level up. But as much fun as the combat is, it isn't the reason to play these games. It might help to think about the Yakuza series as like the Grand Theft Auto of Japan. The gunplay in GTA is good, but it's not really what brings you to the game. It's the same story in Yakuza. Sure, the combat is fun, but the vibrant open world and compelling story are the real reason to play. So let's talk about those for a minute. The Yakuza series has had a variety of playable characters, but all the games focus around the same main protagonist, legendary Yakuza Kiryu Kazuma. Kiryu is a career Yakuza in the city of Kamurocho, a fictionalized version of Kabukicho, Japan. And it's in that city that almost every part of every game takes place, from 0 all the way through 6. The games have a persistent and continuous timeline, with each game's events tied into the next in some way. Each Yakuza story is full of twists and betrayals, feuding Yakuza factions, mysterious organizations, all of which seem to be after the same prize. In Yakuza 0, that prize was a property known as the Empty Lot, a piece of real estate that held the key to a billion-yen redevelopment plan. In Yakuza 1, race was on to find 10 billion yen in stolen cash. Kiryu is a central figure in those stories, and he continues to be the star of all 5 stories that come after it. Through the Yakuza games, we have seen Kiryu join the Yakuza, expelled from the Yakuza, rejoin the Yakuza, get wrongly accused of murder, get wrongly sent to jail for 10 years, and then retire to run an orphanage. After coming out on top again and again, Kiryu has achieved living legend status in Kamurocho. In Yakuza 6, Kiryu is moving into middle age. The daughter he adopted in Yakuza 1 is now a grown-up young woman, and his legend is poised to come to a close. The stories in the Yakuza series, through this point, have been the best features of each of the games in the series. Critical reception of the first game on PlayStation 2 knocked the game for clunky mechanics, but said that the story made the game still worth playing. Now, the mechanics have caught up and are smooth and satisfying, and the stories are still top-notch. But we can't talk about the story of the Yakuza games without talking about one of the game's biggest stars, Kamurocho itself. Just like the real-life area it's based on, Kamurocho is a downtown Tokyo pleasure district full of entertainment. Of course, what that entertainment is just depends on what you're looking for. Everything from arcades to karaoke bars to dance clubs to underground gambling rings can be found in Kamurocho. There's even an underground bikini fight club, which happens to be also an illegal gambling ring. And those are just things that technically exist in the environment. Each of those things is a location you can visit, with mini-games and often side quests associated with them. The side quests in Yakuza are, well, they're not exactly cookie-cutter things. Each side quest is a complete, self-contained story with unique characters and dialogue. In Yakuza 0, for instance, some of the more memorable side quests have you doing things like pretending to be some girl's boyfriend so that her father will stop trying to set her up with people, or helping a woman learn how to berate people so that she can get better at her job as a dominatrix, or meeting a thinly veiled reference to Michael Jackson, a man named Miracle Johnson, and helping him shoot a music video that sounds an awful lot like Thriller. Much of Yakuza's charm is in its willingness to not take itself too seriously. These side stories and mini-games are outlandish and ridiculous, and it knows that. It isn't afraid to have fun and be silly, even though it might turn on a dime and make you cry a few minutes later, or treat something unimportant with deadly seriousness. One of the best examples of this is Pocket Circuit. Now, I sat down to play Yakuza Kiwami one day, and I fully intended to just play through the regular story. But then I stumbled upon Pocket Circuit, and that just torpedoed my entire day. I spent the next 10 hours running around the city, finding new cars and customization parts. I spent millions of yen just on top-end parts for my car. I made multiple loadouts for different types of tracks. I found the kind of depth in this optional minigame that I would have expected to find in a different game that was only about this one thing. By 2 o'clock in the morning, I hadn't made even a scratch of story progress, but damn it, I was Pocket Circuit champion and I was proud of it. And of course, as excited as I was, Kiryu himself might have been even more into it. Yeah, the same man who single-handedly beats dozens of men half to death walked in and had a slot car race with a bunch of children, and he fit right in. Now, I realize I've been gushing about this series for a while now, and it's important to recognize that Yakuza might not be for everyone. For starters, we can't talk about Yakuza's open world without pointing out some of its more common criticisms. The open world in Yakuza is small. It's tiny, really, especially by modern game standards. The entirety of Kamurocho takes up all of about 12 city blocks. It takes maybe 5 minutes to run from one side of the map to the other. However, within that small area, there are literally hundreds of side quests and other things to do. So while the map is small, it's incredibly dense to the point where you're likely to stumble into a large number of side stories just on accident. Every street, every back alley, every corner of the map is important. The map may be small, but not a single square inch of it is wasted. You can spend dozens of hours combing Kamurocho for collectibles, side quests, or just picking fights with the local thugs. Still, after the first couple of hours of the game, you will have pretty much seen most of what there is to see environment-wise. Something else to note is that this game is very Japanese. It is unapologetically steeped in Japanese culture, and most releases in the series have not even bothered dubbing English voice acting. Of course, the Japanese voice work is absolutely top-tier quality and packed with performances from A-list Japanese celebrities, but the sheer lack of an English track might turn some people off immediately. There are also jokes, references, and even product placement that might fly right over your head without some pre-existing knowledge. Missing those things doesn't really make the game worse, but you might find yourself a bit confused at a couple of points. That being said, the localization work in recent Yakuza games is some of the best you'll ever see, and the translation nearly always hits the mark in both the funny and serious moments, just as long as you take the time to read it. The Yakuza series is not a series full of perfect 10 games, but the latest entries in the series have been consistently fun to play, compelling to experience, and just all around enjoyable. There is every reason to believe Yakuza 6 will be the same, but I honestly don't know if it's the best starting place for someone new to the series. If you want to play the latest and greatest, sure, you can pick it up and you should be able to have a great time with it. But the better option is probably still to pick up either Yakuza 0 or Yakuza Kiwami, which is the fully reworked update of Yakuza 1. At any rate, wherever you choose to start, if you have a PlayStation 4, you owe it to yourself to at least give the series a shot. If you do, I'll see you guys in Kamurocho.